Airtable interfaces are epic. We've built interfaces for so many products now, from Project Command, which I'm going to talk to you about today, to this AI tube kit, to this video workflow, to this AI meme workflow. There's been so many different types of products that we've built interfaces for. And the worst piece of advice when I first got started with Airtable was, don't even think about interfaces until you get your tables perfect. Now, there's some truth to that, but it's actually some really bad advice, because what I found with Airtable interfaces is that the interface allows you to do so much more with a workflow, especially when we're building AI automations, that you just cannot do inside of the tables themselves. So once you understand interfaces, you can actually begin to build an interface first product. And I'm going to explain more about that as I go, but this is video number 6 of a 6-part video series where I've been teaching you how we built this epic AI project management system for a client inside of Airtable. Now, Airtable is an incredible piece of software. Even on the free plan, you get so many of these features that we've been talking about over these last 6 videos. And if you haven't gone through the entire 6 videos yet, then I would highly encourage you to go back through all of them so you can understand tables and database structuring, the AI automations that we've built, so that when we start to reverse engineer these interfaces that I've built here inside of Airtable, then it will make so much more sense to you. Now, the other thing that I want to point out is this video is going to be way more in depth than any of the other Airtable interface videos that you see on YouTube, because what I've noticed is that a lot of the videos that are getting created are with products that aren't really in the real world. They've just simplified a table, and this usually doesn't even make any sense to a typical business scenario. So it's all of the basic stuff when it comes to Airtable interfaces. If you don't know me yet, my name is Mitch, and I hate to talk about basic stuff. Like, all of my videos go so far in depth that probably to my own demise, because it's not relevant for everybody. I like to teach to the people who have some experience already, who really want to go deep into topics, and they don't want to just learn the surface level stuff. I find that if you can't figure out the surface level stuff intuitively, then this is probably not something that you want to go dive deeper into. Of course, it's all a learning process, but I want to speak to the people that have at least some base knowledge intuitively, and then we start to figure out some really cool techniques and tips and strategies and building techniques that we can use to build some epic stuff like this workflow here. So Project Command OS is a product that we built for a client that automatically plans projects using AI, using tools like make.com, and it helps them to plan the projects, assign the tasks automatically to the right team members, and so forth. And it's built across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tables within this database here. So we have all of these tables, and now we need to connect them and make them a little bit more beautiful for people to use. Otherwise, team members are not going to use them. Like, if you can imagine, like the very first products we were building inside of Airtable, we just had workflows like these, and we were trying to teach our team members and then, of course, customers how the workflow would operate just from a table like this. It was so hard to do, and no wonder people were getting confused, because even if I look at tables now, I get so confused as to what to do, especially if I've got team members helping to build these out. Whereas if you come into interfaces, then it makes everything so intuitive. Like, you can also have, like, if we come across to this workflow here, this one here, we can actually add some extra text into the workflows to tell people what to do at each of these steps throughout the workflow. So in this video, I'm going to reverse engineer all of these different interfaces that we've built across the left-hand side here, so that you can understand and go for a really deep dive on building interfaces and understand when to use them, how to use them, why you should use them when building your databases inside of Airtable. Now, there are tools that have similar features. I find Airtable is just the most intuitive right now. So let's dive in. So when it comes to building these products, these AI automation products, we always start out with brand assets. So brand assets are things that we feed into the AI automation all of the time. So things like the language we want it to be in, about the brand. We have a few brand prompts in content workflows like our meme agent or our tube kit. We have things like our brand voice guidelines so that the content comes out in the same way, and a few other things like that. But typically every product is going to have a brand assets tab, because we build these templates so that basically unlimited amount of brands can use them within the one template. So if you're an agency, you can upload all of your brands into here, for example. Not so relevant with the project command product, but definitely for content products. And the different brands might have like different prompts for each of these. So the way we built this is we gave the user the ability to edit their prompts inside of the brand assets tab. So what happens is when they onboard themselves, they add a little bit about their brand in here. And then if they want their prompt outputs from the AI to be a little bit different, then all they need to do is change it in here in these sections. And what these sections do, anytime there's a new record created in our project's workflow, we actually have an automation that says, pull those prompts from the brand assets. So this is an automation inside of Airtable, and it says, when there's a new project, add the templates from the brand assets. So it's saying here, if brand asset is not empty, then update this record using these specific fields from the brand assets, and all of them get updated with the templates that we're just talking about. So any new record that gets created, it gets uploaded. So we want to have the ability to easily change those from here if we wanted to. So that instead of changing the prompts inside of the make.com automation, then we can do it here. We don't have to sign in somewhere else. So we always have things like that inside of our brand assets. So in order to create this tab, then we simply just have what they call I believe it's a record interface. To create interfaces, you just come into interfaces tab, and then over on the left-hand side, we have these little plus signs here to create interfaces and then pages within those interfaces. So the way that we typically structure it is we have a brand settings interface, and then we have a few pages in here. So like if I come across into our TubeKit one, so we have a brand settings. This one has a whole lot more different brand settings that we create. Then we have our project command. So like this is where we put our project ideas. This is where we build out the AI workflow for creating the AI project plan and then assigning those tasks. This is where we see all the projects in flight. And then we also have then a final data interface of our SOPs. So all the SOP for this brand is then added into this section here. And we have then individual fields or individual pages inside of the SOP interface for each of the different pillars within the business to make it a little bit easier to navigate. So typically when we're building these types of things, I like to start with the big dominoes first. So the big domino is we need our brand settings. We need our team members and responsibilities, and this can be laid out like this. And then we need our tools and software, and then we need our AI models. So these are all of the brand settings that can get pulled into the workflows. So in order to create those, they're all basically the same. We're using a record pillar or a record page. Let's use the brand assets as the example. So when you create that page, let's just see if we can create a new one. So we'll go record review, and we'll go next. And then we attach this to our brand assets. And then from here, we can filter it if we wish. Typically, I don't worry about that unless I have very specific details. I'll just click next. And then in the next, you want to show all of the fields that you want to show on your interface itself. So all of these fields, yeah, they're all fine. I mean, we didn't have anything in the brand assets folder, so let's not worry about that. Let's add the about the brand. Let's add in what else? Maybe just all the projects that we're currently working on, and then the templates, the AI prompt templates. So then we just do brand assets demo, and we'll click finish. So now we can begin to edit these. So it gives us all of this information up front, and we have a few options. The interfaces that Airtable provide, they do allow us to make some edits to those interfaces, but we are limited in what we can do in this type of workflow. Now they do have one where you can start it from scratch, and that allows you to do a whole lot more. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But this one here, there are a few things that we can do. So typically, I want to make all of these things editable. So if let's see if we can just maybe fit this image size a little bit better. So it's got all of these different attachments. So the different fields within this interface have different ways that we can edit them. First, I want to make sure that all the fields are editable from inside of the dashboard in case we need to update the information. So we're going to do all of that. In the attachment field, for example, we can have different ways we display that image. So I like to actually have it displayed as a hero image and then fit that image to size so it fits in like that. We can also have helper text. So if you need to label as to what this field does or anything like that, you can add the helper text. That's typically common on most of these scenarios. And then we can do things like if we come down to where we have a linked record. So all our projects is a linked record into our projects table. We can change the way that this looks as well. So we might want to change the style to the pills here, and that looks like that. Or we have it as the cards and it looks like that. We can also allow these to be linked and unlinked. So we can do this here, see how it then has the cross to unlink that project from this particular workflow here. We can do add records through a form. So there are some instances where we can add it where we want to do that. Let me just see if I can just put up a form there. So here's a form that we've created. But what I would actually do is if we click around to the different parts of the workflow, let's just finish off making all of these editable. Let's just click on done. So we do have to publish it. If we click publish now, we can see that all of this is laid out. We have the ability to link and unlink projects. We can open this up and link this project in here again. And then we have these prompts that we can edit. So that's like standard. As soon as you add all of those things in, that's what it allows you to do. But we can also then drag some of these things in to start to structure it a little bit nicer. So we might want to add these next to each other. And then that makes it a little bit easier to see some of this information, makes the dashboard look a little bit better. Then we can come across and we can do things like, okay, if we want to add another brand, what's the best way to do that? And if I click on this side here, so we were just editing on the right-hand side before, but if I click on this side, we can actually add in a button here, then creates a little box up here. And if we click on that box, we now have a few actions we can do, which is open the record creation form, go to an interface page, go to an external URL. So if we wanted to add in a new brand, we could just open a record form. And if I click that now, it then opens up this new form here and we could fill this in. So we can fill this in with as many fields as we wish. So again, we will just add in all of the extra things that we want, like our AI prompts. I mean, they get added in automatically, but they can be added and so forth. So the cool part about this as well is that you can have as many forms as you want. So if I open this, we've got our brand asset form attached to this table already. So we could just use this one, or we could create a new one. So we have many options there. And also you can duplicate your existing layout. So if you have a form set and you just want to make a couple of changes, like a filter change or something like that, then you can duplicate your layout, make the filter change, and then you're good to go. So all of this editing that we can do is pretty cool. The other things that we've been doing recently is adding in like delete buttons for these records. So this button here adds a record in the entire database. And then if we do a button inside of this section, we have a few more actions that are available to us, like update the record, copy link to record, delete the record, apply a record template, go to interface page, all the same ones we had before, go to a URL in record. We use that quite a lot now. We never used to, and run automation. So what we actually typically do is we'll go delete and we'll add that one in. So actually delete brand. And that allows then if somebody wants to delete this record, they can delete it. Now, of course, you want to make sure you have a bit of an extra confirmation. So it's smart that they have added that here, which is you want to make sure people confirm to delete the brand before they actually go ahead and do it. So like these are the options that we have on a field like this. Some of the other things that we play around with on these types of views are you can allow comments. So not so much on this one, there's no real need to comment, but imagine if you have a project or a piece of content and you want to allow some collaboration between team members, then you can have a commenting field here as well. We have a revision history, so you can see what changes get made. So we could turn that on if we wanted to. And then there's the ability to change the size of the title up here. So there's some good amount of options here that allow us to make some good changes. In the middle column here, or the left-hand column, we can filter, we can sort, we can group. So all of these can be done by the different types of fields that you have. So you might want to filter by, the different brands that you have, so many different variables here. So that's just one example of an interface. Now, I'm not going to have time to go through all of the different types of pages. I mean, a lot of these are very self-explanatory, but that's basically how we created all of those fields there. So let's just delete this so we don't have it stuck in the template. So all of these were created in basically the same way. So you can see that we have all of these here like that. Now, the cool thing about the workflows here is, like I said, each of these now have their own forms to add new team members in. So if you have a new team member, you can easily add in that new team member just through this form here in the blue plus button. You don't have to go inside of the table, inside of Airtable, and teach someone how to use the database itself. It's the same as Open Router. So when we use Open Router to pull in all of the AI models for our projects and our templates that we build for clients, so that if they want to use OpenAI GPT 4.1 today, they can. And if they want to use in an hour's time Claude 3.7, they can. And they just load each of those new models into this workflow here with just a few different codes and requirements. And then that model is fully integrated into the system. So we make that very easy inside of the brand settings as well. But keep in mind, like the way that I'm going through this now, this is like the foundations of how you begin to build software tools. Now, of course, if you're building software, you've got a whole different bunch of tools and tech stacks that you're using. There's maybe some coding that you need to do. But this is the foundation of understanding how to build software and the different relationships that you need to have, how the different databases, the tables within the databases talk to each other, all the relational fields, how it's all the schema and how everything is interconnected in the right ways. So if you desire to be a software developer or build your own tech product, then just understanding and buying templates like the project command that we have and understanding this on a granular level is actually going to be quite beneficial for you to actually start to learn those skills that you need in order to develop software. So that's one part of the process. Now, the other part is, we've got some of the same types of views here. We've got a list view here, but we can actually then have different levels to the interfaces that we're building. So if I click open now, this then goes into a second interface within this workflow. So if I come back to our original interface here, this is what we would call a list view page. So if I just come across over here on the left-hand side, you can see this is our layout, list view, organize and prioritize. So it gives you a basic list. From here, you then create your full settings. So the settings are the source. So what table do you want it to be on? How do you want to filter it? So we're filtering it by idea. So only the ideas will show up in this interface, I should say. So that's why we call it project ideas. We only want the ideas to show up in here. Once they start getting planned out, then we don't want them to show here anymore because they're not ideas, they're actually in production. So this is what I mean by understanding interfaces first. You can actually do some really cool things because a lot of the time when we first got started, if we wanted a bunch of ideas, we would build one table for our ideas. Then if we wanted to move those ideas into production, we would have another table with projects. And the relations between those was quite hard to do. There was like some information here, some there, and it was just very confusing. Whereas filtering it, and you can do this in views as well in Airtable, filtering these interfaces just makes life so much easier for everybody to understand what goes where and keeping the records as clean as possible. So we have all of those, and then we can add in extra filters up here. So we have the ability then for people to filter a little bit further if they wish by different brand, by different project pillars, by different team members. So that's like team members who are assigned to them. Probably not going to happen in this stage, but it's there anyway. You can also then add any of the fields within that table into the section here. We also have then a couple of buttons. So we're adding a project idea. So this is a new project idea. This is what we need to fill out to add an idea. And we could also add a new project pillar. So we give them a few pillars to work with, but some businesses might have different project pillars or different high-level projects they want to add in as a pillar. So they can easily add that in there as well. And all of that is then set up for the entire page. But then if we click into, so that was like at the top, right? Then if we click into this section here, we have more filtering options. So the big part down in the list here is the fields that we want visible. So these are all the fields within that table, but we don't want to display all of the fields in this list view. We just have all of these ones that are the most important, which is project name, description, hypothesis, pillar, impact, confidence, and ease, and then the overall rating. So they're the things that are most important for us. We can then hide all of these other fields because we don't need them in this stage. But what if you did? So the purpose of the list views for us is we want to see at a high level, what are the things there that we can potentially work on? But then once we make a decision or we want to look into these further, then we can actually click open, and then that opens up the record within that table. And then we have more of the information in this part of the interface. So if I come back here and I click on this section here, so the way that we get to that is we want to click into record details. So if I turn that off, I can't click into that anymore. It actually asks me, do I want to allow this? So yes, I want to allow it. And then that then opens up this section where I can do some editing. The other cool part about these record interfaces is that you can split it into groups. So we split the different information into sections as well. And you can add a show background color. It'll match the color of the actual Airtable. And it then groups some of this information to make it a little bit easier to read. The other cool thing that happens, like all of these are typical thing that we added in before. You add in your fields. If you want to make it editable, you can. So things like formulas, you can't make editable. The overall rating, that's a formula. But all of these are added in. We've got our team members one here, so we can style this as we wish. We can have the card view, or we could have the pills view. And then we have our description, hypothesis, context, what part of our project this is for, and then the AI project plan, if we've already generated that. And then tasks down the bottom here is another level as well, which is it's linking to the task database from inside of this record here. So first, inside of your table, you need to link the records together inside of the table. So you have the ability to see records from your tasks table and also see those records inside of the projects table. So once you have that, then we have the ability to go more granular and like another level down and show the important things for that task. So let's see if we can just find one with some tasks down here already. Might need to go and pull up some different in-flight ones. Let's go down here. Let's go to TubeKit. So this is the one we've been talking about in all of these videos. And if we come down here, we can see now all the tasks that are linked to this record, this project, added in down the bottom here. So this is how we can start to create really great products. Like imagine trying to find all of these tasks for this project if you didn't link them into the interface here. So in my opinion, the way that this is structured is so much more intuitive than any of the project management tools. That's why this is such a great product. And this is why these interfaces are incredible to use to help build workflows for your clients and products for your clients that they actually use, that they enjoy using, that's so much more intuitive, that is so much easier to build, honestly. Like we spent, maybe 50 hours building this overall, but so many people spend more than that, setting up tools like Monday.com, and Monday.com is supposed to be a finalized product that is ready for this type of workflow within your business or this type of system within your business. So this is like the benefit of these Airtables. And these are all simply just drag and drop. Like we can add another group here. We can add in more of the fields from that table. Like the ability to customize is so huge for such a widely varied product like Airtable. It can basically do anything. And these interfaces help make it so much easier for everybody to use. So let's just publish that one now and come in and like, these are all set layouts by Airtable, right? So the Kanban view is a set layout. They have like a schedule view, so you can see, who's working on what at what time. You can see they have like a dashboard view as well, so you can pull in some graphs and charts and stuff. So I'm going to go into charts and stuff at another time, but it's just a way to display all the information you have, like especially the numbers and the formulas that you have, the percentage of overdue tasks. So we'll go into all that another time. What I want to get to in this video is the actual custom workflows that we're building that allow us to build really cool workflows for not just this product, but the TubeKit product, the content system product, the AI meme agent products. Like we're using these custom workflows with the ability to do some pretty incredible things. So let's dive into that one now as well. So on the left-hand side here, if we choose a layout, we can see that it has more and start with a blank canvas. So it's literally a blank canvas when we start, completely white. And we just begin to add in elements from the system itself. So this won't be added down here when you first get started. You just have the ability to add in text, dividers, grids, calendars, Kanban, timeline, gallery, list, chart, number, record picker, filter, and button. So all of these things, a lot of these, or have basically all of them, are already their own interface layouts, but you can also add them into your blank slate. The beauty of these blank slate type of workflows is the record picker. The record picker allows us to then link in any type of table from the entire database and pull that information into the single workflow. So while we don't do it in this workflow, we've only got the one table linked in. with something like, let me give you a quick little sneak peek into our upcoming AI Tube Kit product. For something like this, we actually have the ability to choose a record from one database. Let's just go to this one here. And then the output that we create is from another database, but then that database is linked back to here. And then we can, if we have multiple variations or multiple outputs of AI for that one record, we can actually link them back in to the same record in this workflow so that we know which AI outputs are integrated or actually related to the original record. So it's very hard to see this type of thing if you're not using interfaces. And this is the really cool thing about what you can do when building your own interfaces from scratch. But anyway, that's like super advanced. We're going to come back to that in a couple of weeks. So make sure you subscribe if you want to see more about that. But inside of this workflow now, we're basically just adding in all of the elements into this interface that we need for this workflow to operate as we want it to. So we're starting with a few key aspects up here, which is the status, choose the brand that it's for, and choose a task. So this task has all of the tasks that have a condition over here of to do. So if the status is to do, then we can plan this task with AI. If it's just an idea, then it will disappear. So the condition over here allows us to only pull in the records into this interface when it's actually ready. This is like a really big key part of interfaces, is that we can, as the product designer, we can determine a step-by-step process with interfaces so that only once step one has been completed, will it show up in step two. So what I'm saying is only when it goes from idea to do, will it show up in this list here. If it's still in the idea phase, then it's actually not going to show. So that's why I don't want to change that. The idea stage gets added in here automatically. So if we were to look at the status in this section here, it's only ideas here. And for us to then push these ideas into the next phase, we actually need to go to do, as it says here, and then it will push it into the next phase so that we have the ability to find that in this list. So this is how we can start to have some really great product design aspects to move people through different stages of the workflow. And then in order for them to keep up, we just add a little bit of information up here with a text block to tell them how to actually use the system. So once they add in the record, then all of this stuff should be already added. And we can also tell them to add a little bit more extra context if they need to. They can then create a start date and a deadline date and then move through into the next stage. So this is what I mean. Like we've got one record selection here, and then we've got our linked records here of what they need to choose. So here, we're then telling them, okay, now add in the team members and tools required for this task. Only add in the right ones, not everybody. Then we're saying, okay, now optimize your AI output. So here it's then pulling in the prompts. So remember we had the prompts automatically get added to a new record based on that automation that we talked about earlier. So basically we're saying, hey, these are the prompt structures that the AI is going to generate. If you want them to display differently, then go ahead and change that output structure now. Then we have the ability to execute the AI project planner. So here we give them a little bit more information. So we give them a recommendation of the type of model to use. So like the chain of thought or reasoning type of model. Ensure you edit the output to be relevant to your business. Then they choose the AI model from here, and then they plan the project and the AI status shows here. So as that's running, it'll say AI writing, and then eventually the AI project plan will drop into here, and then this status will change to AI complete. So that's why in this workflow, this is a field that is not editable, because if I change that, then they could actually change this themselves. We don't want them to change this field themselves. The AI updates that automatically. So we want to make sure that that's not an editable field. So again, this is how interfaces are so much better than if you were to use just the table, for example. Because if you were in the table, then you don't have the ability to turn off whether that is editable or not. I mean, you could change some views potentially, but it's so much easier in these interfaces. Then we have our next step. So we're literally just giving them steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. A little bit more information here. We're linking to the automation as well in a button. So we set this up in a record when we're setting up the Airtable base. Then if there's any glitches, they literally just click this button and shoot straight off into the automation. Again, like having that inside of the data, inside of the tables, is so much harder to get your mind around. Then we have the same type of execution prompts with our status, and then the final project plan comes in here. Then we have our tasks. So Again, all of the same stuff, but some very detailed instructions of how they do all of that. So as you can see, there's a lot there that can happen. And let me just come back in here for a second. In order to add all of these things, we simply just go add element. We've already linked in. So at the start, we linked in a record picker. That record picker is then available for us to add in all of the fields that we want. We just add in those fields. Let's add those 3. We can then go editable to make that editable if we want. We can drop and drag them. So we can make it like that. Then if we just hover over the entire section, we can then change the color of that section. We can then make it full widescreen, or we can make it narrow. We can remove the background again. We can do so many different things in these workflows here. Even if you have named your fields differently, we can change the field names here. So we might want to say, this is your prompt. So we can make these labels different to the field names that you have in the database. So especially if you have a developer who's using has IDs for their fields, so they're using things like this, and that's quite hard for someone who is a normal everyday user to understand what ID /underscore view actually means. Whereas here, you can change the name of that field without changing the name of the field in the actual database itself. It's just changing it on the interface. So you can make that as detailed as possible, and you can remove it even. So there's so many different things that we can do in this particular section. If you need to delete it, then you just hover over it or click on it and then just hit the delete button, and that's gone. So it's really as simple as that. And like I said, a large part of building interfaces is really just diving in and starting to play around with all of the different fields, clicking on the buttons, seeing what you can do, and understanding the different relations between the different fields. And it's really understanding database structuring, relational fields in order to create the best products possible. Like if I look at this product that we created, it is 10 to 20 times better than the very first product I created. The very first product I created, a ton of people loved and purchased and used, but it didn't have any of these type of interfaces. And if I look back at it now, it's like, no wonder so many of those people were confused when they were actually using the system. It took such a high amount of education to get people to use it. And honestly, probably more than half of them never did, because it was a little bit of it was just way too hard for people to get their head around. So interfaces make these types of products so much easier. If you are building AI automations, you want to have these types of interfaces to make your product more valuable and have the perceived value of that product to be much higher. Like if you imagine you're trying to sell a table, like a Google Sheets product to a client versus something like an Airtable product with an interface, what is the client going to choose, especially if they're not technical? Of course, they want an interface that looks exactly like this. So I hope this gave you at least some idea of the different workflows that you can build, but keep in mind, like we've got TubeKit coming out in a few weeks where we're going to go deep into those interfaces as well. If you are interested in any of the other interfaces that we've built, then make sure you comment down below, and I'll definitely do a video about that in future. But this training here today is an interface on tools that are in production right now for clients getting used every single day. These are like advanced tools. We're not just building some random table with a bunch of dummy information to teach this to you. These are real tools with real world application for real businesses making real money. So if you do want to dive deeper into not just Project Command OS, but any other tools, then make sure you check out our website. We have a bunch of really cool templates available. And the templates that we sell to you are literally like less than 1/10 of the price that we sell to the clients for. So if we install this into a client, they're going to pay a few $1,000s. You get it for a tiny fraction of that cost. You get to understand it all. You get the education behind it. You get to learn how to set it up. And you can literally take this template or any of our other ones and go out and sell them to clients for 10 to 20 times the price that you pay for it. So I'd encourage you to go check that out. Plus, if you do purchase any of our products, you do get access into our community for free, where you get to learn from other people as well. We have, I think, 5 or 6 expert masterclasses in there. We have a few extra templates and automations in there for free. And we generally do have quite a few updates over the months as well, with new templates, new expert masterclasses and those types of things. So make sure you get involved. I'd love to see you in the community. And of course, this is video 6 of 6. Comment down below what you thought of it. I'm always looking to learn how could I improve this video series as well. And I'll make sure that I do that in the next one. So see you in the next video.